Okay. Oh, it already started.
Hey, Seth.
Hi, Brandon. Nice to see you. Oh, you know what? We didn't. Are you worried about my rotting tooth? When I do it right, it looks like I have two rotting teeth.
Yeah.
Like black fangs. Okay. We forgot to and all the craziness and hubbub of the last episode to throw down the gauntlet for a new theme song for you to do this week.
Yeah, I didn't. And I thought about adapting. So this week we're talking about 3 short films that Wes Anderson made.
That's right.
Jack White's Favorite Number. And originally I was going to adapt Randy Newman's Short People to this, but I don't know how to play it on guitar. So
Short movies got. No, that's a terrible Randy Newman voice, but
yeah, that's more of a London guy. Batman and his little dog. Have you ever seen that Family Guy skit?
Yeah. That was actually around the time I was getting into Randy Newman, and I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Randy Newman didn't like it too much.
Oh, really?
I remember watching something about him on a talk show where you're saying, yeah, I just don't get it.
Well, that doesn't. I mean, honestly, if that's all it is, that doesn't surprise me, and that seems fair. Like, I don't get it. Like, I just don't understand that level of humor. Fine. So like you said, yeah, we're talking about 3 short films, which, as you pointed out, and I didn't know, at least one was definitely sponsored by a company and meant to be as like a kind of a long form ad.
2, I think the one, yeah.
Well, because we'll get to them, I guess, as we get to them. But what order would you like to go in? Is there one that you want to start off with?
Let's start in chronological order. So Hotel Chevalier.
Sure.
Is that how you would pronounce that?
I think so. So the only reason I say that is because there used to be this saxophone player for a band I knew, and I called him. I met one of his band members, and at the time I really looked up to the band. So I said, "Oh man, do you know Dave Chevalier?" And the guy chuckled, and he's like, "Yeah, I know Dave Chevalier. He was a good friend of mine." And I was like, so I'm like listening there. Yeah. I'm like, Chevalier, okay.
You fancy. It's hard to know. We're Americans. We're not expected to know.
Yeah, especially I think I was like 19 at the time, so like of course I had no clue, but yeah.
Yeah, our school systems have failed us.
I was homeschooled, so my school system really failed me.
Yeah.
So it not only does that one come first chronologically, and I think that's good to start that way, but also it's connected to the film we just discussed last week, which is Darjeeling Limited, because it's on the Darjeeling Limited DVD and is like connected to it and has some of the same characters. So I think you know some more about that and why it is like that. So you have some of those theories of why that all works together?
It's weird. I mean, I did just a little bit of reading before we started, and I think what I read is that Wes Anderson couldn't decide if this wanted to be a single project or if it was going to go along with Darjeeling Limited. And he just kind of happened to notice as he was writing this little film that the main character was similar to another character he was writing in Darjeeling Limited, which, hadn't been fully fleshed out yet. But it's weird as you watch it because there are so many little details that do connect to Darjeeling Limited. You have which you would have to know. It's not like you would have to know that before you even started writing Darjeeling Limited or before you started production. 2 points specific, 3, 2 points as far as things you need to know before is that you have the suitcase that says JLW on it.
Yeah.
And then there's just a quick scene of her dropping the perfume in there, which becomes a major detail later.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that, but yeah, he has that on the train later on, and yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you probably could have added that in, but I think the suitcase being so specific that it has that his initials on it. So you kind of have to tie that in. So again, he just couldn't decide if he wanted that to come before the movie or if it should be its own thing. And apparently even the actors worked for free on that, which is another interesting detail because Natalie Portman is pretty much nude in it. aside from, I mean, the audience doesn't see her breasts, but for the most part, I don't think she's wearing any covering over herself in the room. So to like strip for something for free for Wes Anderson seems,
Must be nice to have that much clout and power in the movie making industry, huh?
I guess, but I didn't think, I mean, that's right after Life Aquatic. So how much power and clout did he have?
You know, it strikes me as being one of those like you know, people talk about like this is a band for other bands, or they talk
Yeah.
about like this is a movie for movie makers.
Yeah.
You know, I bet he had pretty early on the sort of aura around him in Hollywood that was like, you know, because I'm sure a lot of actors, you know, like intelligent actors, aren't going to see, you know, Avengers in theaters. You know, it's just like, okay, it's a studio thing, whatever. But I could totally see like a lot of these actors almost being kind of envious about getting in a Wes Anderson film because it's not about the money, it's not even about the fame. It's just like something cool that only a certain number of people get to do. You know?
Yeah. He's an actor's filmmaker, I think.
Yeah.
And there's only one other guy I know like that, which is that people actually take pay cuts to work with him. And that's Terrence Malick. I don't know if you've seen any Terrence Malick movies.
What are his main ones?
He did Badlands is kind of, that was his first one. And then he did Thin Red Line. He did Tree of Life.
Oh, yeah.
He
Yeah,
did.
Thin Red Line was not my thing, but
Oh man, I love that movie.
really?
Absolutely love it. That's my favorite war movie.
And I guess that's part of it is just I don't like war movies, so
Yeah.
whatever. But
Well, he also did a really, I've heard other people say that they fell asleep during this movie, but he did a really long movie about John Smith and Pocahontas called The New World. Does that sound familiar?
is that with Colin Farrell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he did that?
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. That seems like the kind of, well, honestly, this is getting way too off topic. So yeah, that's just weird. With Hotel Chevalier, you know, there are some things that are typically Wes Anderson, and there's some things that aren't at all. You know, it seems awfully like tight and confined and has some really close-up shots, like when they're laying on the bed together, and some of the dialogue that's not entirely Wes Anderson-ish. So
No.
it strikes you as kind of an odd thing, right?
Yeah, this one's a little more. So if you watch Come Together, which is what we'll talk about later, and let me look at this to make sure I get the pronunciation right.
Castello Cavalcanti.
Thank you. Castello Cavalcanti, those are a little more whimsical and upbeat. And this one's just, this is actually kind of a hard watch for me. I mean,
Yeah.
hearing her, I think just hearing her say, if we fuck tonight, I'm going to feel like shit. And he goes, that's fine with me. And I think, man, God, you're going to have sex with somebody after they said that? Like, I know that I'm naive and I'm in my own little bubble, and I get it that people have sex to like, so they can feel that relationship again or feel that closeness. But it's really hard for me to watch someone say mean words and then they have this, you know, intimate bond with each other with someone who's kind of hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was interesting. That whole scene is what one of the things that Jack reads to his brothers in Darjeeling Limited. So it was kind of fun to hear that dialogue actually happen, because the running joke in Darjeeling Limited is everyone hearing it knows he's writing about his own life and these are these people, but he keeps saying he's denying it, and then at the end he finally relents. But you know, we all know, and so we're actually seeing, yes, this was actually him saying these words.
yeah.
And I love how his brothers are like, I liked it. I liked how mean you were. You know,
Yeah,
like,
I like how mean you
and
are.
he is.
And the other thing, I mean, Natalie Portman, she comes, so you have that mean spiritedness as Jack is relaying the story through this kind of short story that he's writing. But Natalie Portman, when she comes in, you can tell that she's the powerhouse. So like she takes all the power in the room.
Yeah.
And it becomes her.
It was really funny. I almost feel like they did certain things with her character to make her almost like, for lack of better words, more mannish. So like she's got short hair, she's got the toothpick in her mouth. This is like, it's like flipped dynamics that are kind of the stereotype of men and women. Like she comes in and she's like it's almost like, hey babe, what's up, and sort of like
Yeah.
does what she wants in the room, and the other one's sort of like walking around, sort of navigate the situation. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think the short hair is because she was just coming off of V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta.
Okay.
So I think that's why she has short hair. The bruises, I don't know. Those look real. That doesn't look like makeup.
Yeah.
Which I think they just wrote into the story, and he said you have bruises, and she doesn't really say much to it.
Yeah.
But you can even see Jack. He's becomes submissive to her. He's kind of like looking around to see what she's doing, and even allowing her to come up into the hotel room. Period.
Yeah.
And so, but to give an overall, I just didn't. I don't really care for this.
I don't know how to rate or rank a short film because it's so much different in terms of quantity that impacts the quality. So I don't even know if we need to like rate or rank any of these.
No, but we can just say whether we liked it or not.
And you're gonna say you didn't like it?
I'm gonna say I didn't like it. I just didn't enjoy it.
Okay, what about that song? There's that recurring song that goes throughout the, what?
Yeah, that's also in Darjeeling Limited too.
I thought it sounded familiar, and I kept thinking I should know who this is, but I couldn't place it. Do we
He
know?
plays it right before Sweet Lime comes in to smoke a cigarette. She says, "I've got to get off this train."
Yeah. Okay. Okay. But you don't know who the artist is?
No.
It sounds like some like '60s folk, kind of person, right?
Yeah, with Parisian, obviously Parisian undertones, but I don't know who that would even be.
Yeah. Okay.
It plays a pretty significant part in the story, and I'm sure to Wes Anderson, the lyrics probably connect to not only the emotional vibe he wanted to put out there, but I'm sure there's some kind of connection to what the story is supposed to tell. But I don't know the song and I don't know the lyrics.
Yeah. This feels like, if you ever read, I'm a big fan of short stories, and if you ever read short stories by like, oh shoot, like Salinger or someone, this seems like a JD Salinger short story. Like
Oh,
it's
really?
just this weird little vignette where you get this snapshot of two people's lives they're not extraordinary. You know what I mean? It's not like this is some bizarre, like, can you believe these things happened? But it is mildly compelling, right? Just to see like there's an interesting dynamic here. They're dealing with life in ways that maybe I wouldn't. So
Yeah, I think it's just sad to me because they're isolated even though they're together. And it's and you hear about these things, these people who seek out relationships that only cause them to feel pain.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, I'm sure I've done that in my life. I'm sure I've, wanted to reconnect with people who broke up with me or whatever, but it's kind of hard. It's just sad to me.
yeah.
And I don't know if it actually gives anything. So what I wonder is if you didn't know about this film, and I don't think this film showed before the movie in the theaters, but if you didn't know about this film, would that lessen your appreciation for what Jack says at the end of the movie of Darjeeling Limited?
What is that? What does he say?
What you're talking about with the short story, when he's written a
Oh,
short
oh,
story.
yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I thought it was just unique in its own, just that he finally, like, everyone knows and he won't admit it, and then finally he admits it. So I think there's value in that, even regardless of seeing it having happened in his life.
So
Although
would
I
you give
guess
it a
if you haven't seen the short story, maybe you do think, did they happen in his life or did they not? And he's just tired of arguing with people and is agreeing with them just because he's tired of defending it and saying that his characters are not based on all of them.
And see, that's what I'm wondering. Does the short add value to the story?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. I don't know that
Well,
it does.
yeah.
When I have the Criterion collection of Darjeeling Limited, and when you put it on, you have the option to watch Hotel Chevalier with Darjeeling Limited, and I always just choose Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that makes sense. I don't know if I go as far as you to say I don't like it, but it's not. I don't think it's like greatness. It's just you know I guess in my time crunched life now, it's one of those things where I wish he had condensed that down to like 5 or 6 minutes, like the other short films. You
Even
know,
shorter film.
exactly. Well, the other two that we watched were, like 5 or 6, maybe 7 minutes. But like, if I were in college or whatever, it wouldn't matter. He could have made a whole movie out of that, and I probably would have watched it, when I was in my late teens or early 20s.
Yeah.
So, but
All right. So next we have, so that was in 2007, which was, as we said, he made while he was writing Darjeeling Limited. And then in 2014 or 2000, when was Come Together?
16, winter of 16, I
Yeah.
think.
So in 2016, I think after the release of Grand Budapest, no, or was it?
Yeah, that'd have been right around Grand Budapest time.
So, okay, this is prior to the release of Isle of Dogs. Grand Budapest was 2014 and Isle of Dogs was 2018. So,
Yeah,
right in
I mean,
between those two.
it's like a year and a half, yeah, apart from
Yeah.
each of those.
And this is what's weird is that even though this was made, what would that be? What's the years there? 8 years later after Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah. It's got it's got all these connections, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's because Adrian Brody is in it, and it has a train that you automatically assume it's Darjeeling Limited, but it has the same kind of feel to it.
Wasn't that great? Yeah, it's almost like you had mentioned that they built a train for that, and I almost wondered when I was watching that, is this the train that they built for Darjeeling Limited that they're using for this short? But okay, so Come Together. First of all, it's an advertisement for H&M, which is a little odd.
Yeah.
Number two, I don't know how this even would have worked, because you don't get to play 5 or 6 minute things or 7, whatever, how long it is, as an ad on TV. So I don't know where this was an ad at. And then there's, Come Together is a Beatles song, and we do get a John Lennon song at the end, so we can connect here musically. You notice so you start off with Adrian Brody, like you mentioned, that connects us to Darjeeling Limited, even though he's a different character. He's not the same character as he was in Darjeeling Limited. He's on this train, and it's Christmas time. So this is like, it's set Christmas Day 2016, which Trump has just been elected. And he probably didn't know that when they're writing or filming it, but this comes out like, 6 weeks after the election.
Yeah.
So there's like all this other stuff going on in the world. And there's probably what is, I think, maybe the most maligned Christmas song playing throughout most of it, which is Little Drummer Boy. Like that's the one that like The Office does a joke about it, right? Like of course it's the one that Angela likes, because it's like the most annoying, grating Christmas song, right?
Yeah.
So that's playing throughout, and you kind of find out there's a mishap, and this guy's trying to make the best of it as he can for his passengers. And I thought it was really great when they go grab the thing with the handle, as they're flying by, which I think is what they used to do, like for mail.
That's how they used to get the mail.
Yeah. So it's all that's really neat. And then I love that what I consider one of the best or freshest Christmas songs is that John Lennon Happy Xmas War Is Over comes on, and the little kid that walks in, I swear, looks like a barefooted version of Paul McCartney, like a little kid version of Paul McCartney.
Oh, really?
He really has some similar facial features and some of that like Beatles haircut, like early Beatles haircut,
Yeah.
So I wondered if he did that intentionally, but I just thought for an advertisement that was really cool. How did you feel?
I think it's weird that it is an advertisement, because what's being advertised, I don't really know.
Right.
But I have seen Wes Anderson. There's also another one that he did for American Express, I think, or Capital One. I think it was American Express.
Yeah.
Where it just shows him as a filmmaker, and he's actually the star of the commercial. So how this tie, I just don't understand if he decided to make a movie, or if H&M approached him and said, we want to do a Christmas thing.
I don't know how it came about, but my guess is that, so a lot of brands have been doing this the last few years. They just want to promote the brand. They don't have a particular product they want to do. They just want to connect their brand. They want to get publicity, get in front of people, and connect it to someone who's famous or popular, like Wes Anderson. Yeah. So, I even heard, and I'll tell you how there are much weirder things that happen with that kind of stuff, where I read about that time. I read about Converse, the shoe company.
Mhm.
They hosted a show with Matt and Kim in like Brooklyn or somewhere, and basically all they did was like pay for the show and promote it. And then I think like at some point at the beginning they said like this show is hosted by Converse, and that's literally it. There was no like buy these shoes or anything like that. It was just sort of like, we want people in this hip neighborhood to associate Converse with like the cool scene. So they had a Matt and Kim show. Isn't that weird?
It is weird, and I can't decide if I like that or not.
I know. It's like this is unusual and new, and I like Matt and Kim and I like Wes Anderson, but it still is like a grimy company publicity thing, So it's
Yeah, but it's almost I think it has humble begin or humble maybe initially kind of a huh?
like humble trappings.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly a good way to say what I was trying to say. But it's still, and I mean, how upset should I be about this? I'm not, or not upset, but this is let me just go on a tirade about this. No, I think like or a tirade, but I think this is just part of living in capitalist society, right? So some of that's, you just have to accept that people are going to try to sell you all the time, even when it comes to going to a Matt and Kim show and wanting to see that. Someone's going to try to sell you something, or
Yeah.
just having all these kind of good feelings with Christmas, and using that good feeling that we connect with family and rituals and stories, and then trying to sell something on top of that. So some of that's just surviving in a capitalist system.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I do really enjoy the short until the
Mhm.
very end when it says H&M. But honestly, would Wes Anderson have? So the other one, Wes Anderson, Hotel Chevalier, he financed it. He paid for the actor showed up for free. He paid for everything. He did the editing. For this one, would it have been made without H&M? So it's kind of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I mean, it is artistic. It's not just I try to organize that in my mind when people talk about like music, they used to have jingles, like you'd have this really short, or like the Cars for Kids jingle is like a good example of a modern sort of radio ad jingle. And those I don't think of as like music, or at least I mean, it's music, but it's not art. You know what I mean? This is something extremely simple meant to sell something. And I don't think Come Together strikes me that way. It's not like he did a 25-second ad for them to place on in between, in a commercial break of a show that's just like, H&M's really cool, and my name's Wes Anderson, and sometimes we buy clothes at H&M when we're getting ours, So this strikes me as like, it is legitimate art, and you're right. If H&M hadn't paid for this and done it, we may not have ever had this piece of art. So, yeah, I mean,
and it
I
is a
can
beautiful. I think it's a beautiful story
Mhm.
of him trying to look out for that kid. And it has all these, and this is what I enjoy. This is what I don't enjoy about Hotel Chevalier, and what I really enjoy about this are these kind of like little jokes that you just become. This is part of Wes Anderson's shtick, One example is the guy who comes in and actually doesn't say anything, but he comes in and looks at his watch and he goes, "Not now." Adrian Brody goes, "Not now," immediately before the guy can even say anything.
Yeah.
And so then you're introduced to each character who's in their own car, and then you go up to the kid, and there's just a sign that says "unaccompanied minor." A little detail there that I was thinking, well, that's kind of funny. I don't know why I think that's funny, but there's just the kid on here, and there's a sign that says "unaccompanied minor."
Yeah.
But overall, the story is just so sweet in that the conductor was trying to create this little Christmas because the train had been delayed for this child.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a tenderness and a sweetness to it.
Which I don't know if that exists for Hotel Chevalier. I mean, that just seems.
No.
And you have to make room for both. I mean, I'm not saying let's only keep the tender and get rid of people who have those kind of feelings of isolation breakups and all that comes with that. But
I think the alienating thing for me, when you compare those two, is not even just the sort of maybe grossness of their relationship in Hotel Chevalier. It's the fact that like they're they're also like not they're not characters, or they're not in situations I can empathize with, because like I
yeah,
was thinking when she comes in and asks, how much does this hotel cost, and it's some like absurd amount, and you're just like, these are just rich people problems that they're creating for themselves. I just don't, whatever. I know these people exist, but I'm not particularly interested in those kind of situations.
and I mean, you and I, to some degree, have that some sort of privilege in that we make most more money than probably most people living in the world. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. It reminds me of The Great Gatsby, where you're supposed to empathize with people who are rich and do absolutely nothing all day,
I know.
except
I know.
attend parties and just waste away in hotel rooms. And, yeah,
Yeah. So I think you're right to, I think you and I both enjoy come together more, and I liked it. I'm expecting that you'll say you liked it as well.
yeah.
Cool.
But my favorite of all of them is Castello Cavalcanti.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I mean, uh, I love I've seen, like, have you ever seen movies by Federico Fellini?
I don't think
Um,
so.
he did a movie called Eight and a Half. That's kind of his bread and butter. And then he did, okay, La Dolce Vita is kind of the next one. But he was an Italian filmmaker, and he has such an eye. I mean, such a unique voice and a unique vision of his life in Italy growing up, which kind of becomes part of every film that he's made. And
Okay.
so I think Wes Anderson is drawing a lot from Fellini here when he in this, but it also has his own style too. And that, again, these little jokes, which my favorite one is that Jason Schwartzman is invited to the table where the guys are playing cards. He says, "What are you, the old man of the area?" Like, he immediately tries to knock him. I mean, he just sat down and he's like looking at everybody else to see, what they thought of dissing the old man because he feels bad that he wrecked his car.
Yeah.
Um, One joke that I couldn't tell if it was too broad or not, but the fact that he put his steering wheel on backwards and that made him wreck backwards. I don't know if that's too broad or if it's funny. I don't.
Yeah. There were a lot of like odd things about that. With, well, again, just Jason Schwartzman was the perfect actor for that. And
Yes.
you hear him like he's way behind everybody, and they're all kind of motoring past successfully, and it's got this cool, quaint feeling to it, right? It's like
Yep.
these cars are
Small
small and
town.
not super powered, and
Yeah.
it's set in decades, probably what, in the 50s or something, 40s or 50s. Um, and then like you hear Jason Schwartzman come up and he's cussing up a storm, and everything's going wrong, and then he slams into the statue.
Yeah.
It's just like,
It's so
uh,
good. The statue of Jesus.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and then you see like the statue's kind of like leaning over after he's run into it.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, dude, we messed up. This one came out in 2013. We did not do this chronologically.
yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know when it came out, but I was guessing it hadn't come out since 2016, so I didn't. But that's fine.
Yeah,
This
my
this
bad.
worked. This worked good topically because the first two connected with Darjeeling Limited, and this one really doesn't. So
Yeah. So this came out prior to Grand Budapest. And when I saw it, I actually thought it was in promotion of Grand Budapest. But I think, again, it's just a little short film that Wes Anderson wanted to make that's financed by Prada. And it's just a story in and of itself of this, guy um, finding his heritage, I guess.
yeah, yeah, and it's like this unexpected thing. That guy he disses and says like, "What are you, the old man?" And it turns out like it's his great great uncle, granduncle, or whatever. And uh there's just like so many funny layers to that, of like the language and the way the old men act. Like I think that quaintness again is so fun, with like when they're showing all the people gathered around, they got these tiny little Italian flags, and they're cheering for
Mhm.
the racers. And I think you've seen Triplets of Belleville, right?
What is that? Is that for
That's a
some reason
French.
I'm thinking of the Sherlock Holmes book.
No. It's a film from maybe 15 years ago. It's animated, cartoon 2D animation, and it's
No,
a French
you
guy.
mentioned it in one of the other
Oh,
talks
did
we
I?
did. I think
Okay.
so, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's just a lot of like connection to that feel, but like yes, actually to connect back to Hotel Chevalier, there's these great scenes where with language, there's these little jokes with language and Jason Schwartzman character. So like in Hotel Chevalier, he calls in and orders, and he's speaking I guess what, French, and then
Yeah, yeah.
he asks like, "What's the word for?" And he asks in English, like, "What's the word for whatever?" And the guy tells him, so you
Grilled
realize like
cheese.
he speaks English, they speak English, but he wants to pretend he can speak French or like practices French.
Yeah.
Um, that sort of happens in this one, and the race car one too, where he's sort of trying to do some Italian and stuff too, right?
I don't know if he actually spoke Italian, and I don't remember. Oh no, he did. He did. Yeah, but he seemed more fluent in it because I was actually surprised to see Schwartzman pull that off. And I think he only says a few words, and that's right as they're moving the vehicle away
Yeah,
before he said to the group. But it seemed pretty fluent to me.
he did.
Um,
Although, even though I can't speak Italian, I think you can tell what he said because they're all cognates. Cognates like a word in one language that sounds almost exactly like
oh, I
that
didn't know
other
that.
word in the other language. So he says, basically like a catastrophic disaster, but it's like disastro catastrophique or something like that. And you're
Ah,
like,
okay. I
oh,
didn't even
okay.
catch that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I looked up if Schwartzman actually was Italian, because he does have some Italian features. And it turns out his mother was Catholic, Italian Catholic, and has that kind of ancestry from his mother's side.
But okay, so is his birth name Schwartzman?
Well, he's also Jewish
I
too.
was
I
gonna
think
say
it's
that's a
probably,
Jewish name,
yeah.
but I guess he'd get that from his dad. So he's got like a Jewish dad and a Italian Catholic mom.
Yeah, I think that's right. If I remember, if I read that right.
I mean, weirder
Um,
things happen, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of fascinating.
So yeah, I think he's kind of feels at home in that. Well, his grandparents were Polish Jews, and his mother was Italian American Catholic. So even when they say this is the one that didn't leave, when he says you're the one who didn't leave, I bet that to the old man, his great 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 uncle or whatever, I bet that's probably ties to some of Jason's real life experience.
That could, yeah, that really
Yeah.
could. It's
So this one, sorry, go ahead.
well, I just the whole setting is such a great. I love when you can find. I mean, a lot of it's hunting for the right location. That's a whole process in itself when you're shooting stuff like that. And he seems to have a knack for finding those locations where like just the buildings and then the props on the set and stuff are just like
Yep.
so. That alone makes you feel a certain way as you're watching it to where um you feel like, man, I want to experience this. Now if I experienced it in real life, I'd probably feel very out of place and not enjoy it a lot. But
Yeah.
you want to imagine that you want to imagine that like you could vacation there and just like play cards with the old men at night.
Dude, I bet. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that has to do with the minor characters in the film too, who are, nobodies. But I mean, speaking as far as film, that sounds like a put down. But uh, I bet you if you went, and I wanted to say prior to this that I might be biased a little bit because I so badly just want to visit a small Italian town and go eat spaghetti, and have some of their spirits. But I bet you people would invite you to a game they were playing, and I'm sure that they would be hospitable.
They might.
It depends on where you go in Italy, but I bet.
Yeah, as an American, you always have like a little bit less natural stuff because a lot of Europeans just get tired of American tourists. So there's going to be probably some of that.
I mean, I know that exists in Paris. I don't know does that exist in London?
I think it exists. Well, I don't know about London, but just a lot of places in general in Western Europe. It's just
Okay.
they're used to rich Americans coming over and speaking English and blah blah blah. And I don't think it's not like people hate Americans. It's just like I don't know. It's just sort of a hesitance, like a okay, roll your eyes
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
See, I
I don't
think
know.
those smaller cities would probably be very open to
Good,
um,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. I have nothing to base that on. There's one small film or short film that we did not include in this that I'm going to surprise you with. It is called Cousin Ben Troop Screening with Jason Schwartzman.
Wait, you didn't read my Wes Anderson schedule at all, did you?
No, I did.
That's
Did you
in
want
the
that in?
thing.
Shit, my bad.
Hold on. Let me look it up because I know we've kind of run into a couple like snafus here. Yeah, so October 1st, I did call it just Cousin Ben. And then MK Animated, I wrote, that's a Moonrise Kingdom one, and I think it's some kind of animated short as well. So there will be another day as we lead up to this. There'll be one more day where we watch 2 shorts, and that'll be right before Moonrise Kingdom. But
I thought I was going to pull one over on you. But
I mean, I looked at IMDb. I mean, I assume that's pretty exhaustive.
yeah,
I sound like
I don't
Steve Easter. I assume they check their facts.
What's the MK Animated? I don't know that one. Memorized Kingdom Mannequin?
I don't know. Go look on IMDb at his filmography. There's some kind of I don't even remember the name of it.
So when I look at Wes Anderson, we have short films here. Oh, maybe it's Do You Like to Read?
Yeah, click on? Is that a short that's like animated?
You gotta let me share my screen.
Oh, okay, hold on.
It's all Wikipedia sites. That's my research. You do IMDb and I do Wikipedia.
Okay, all right. I think you can share now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm a little more old school. I actually write to the library and ask for the card catalog entries for each Wes Anderson movie they have in the Library of Congress.
Yeah. So we have Bottle Rocket, obviously, Hotel Chevalier. Looks like Do You Like to Read might be the one that you're thinking of, because
Must be.
Both of these are under promotional short.
Yep.
And then you have these commercials, which are the ones that we're talking about, the American Express. These probably don't count because they weren't written by Wes Anderson, but then Castello Cavalcanti and Come Together.
See, that's so weird, because I guess I wish I should have done your method and looked at Wikipedia, because so when I looked at his filmography, I filtered out the ones that I knew were advertisements, like the American Express one. But if I had known the others were, like Come Together was an advertisement or a commercial, I would have probably filtered out. But I'm kind of glad I didn't now.
Well, it's actually.
Should we watch some of those other ones?
Well, the Wikipedia page for Come Together says it was a Christmas-themed comedy short film instead of commercial. So there's
definitely got the H&M ad at the end.
Yeah, there's some discrepancy in how this is described across Wikipedia, but so that's
why I can't trust Wikipedia, Brandon. Don't trust, you can't quote Wikipedia stuff in a paper, so it doesn't belong here in our record of
what's the appropriate, where do I find peer-reviewed articles on Wes Anderson's short films?
There probably are some, actually. I will tell you this. People always say like you can't quote Wikipedia, and all I did was I would go to Wikipedia and then they have the footnotes with the sources. So then you just click on the source and you can use that source. Now, I never actually went and got that book that they quote and made sure this is actually a quote from page 153 of this title.
Yeah.
But it's not like anyone could ever check and know anyway. So it's like you're doing the exact same thing. You're just taking one extra step to, cite the source that they cited. So anyway, I think that's a good way to do it. I never thought to look at Wikipedia for his filmography.
Yeah. You're going to give yourself away and they're going to discredit your Masters of Divinity.
We are stripping you heretofore of your master's degree.
Wikipedia? What?
Every time someone says Wikipedia, I think of that Weird Al song where he says, I edit Wikipedia. I think it's White and Nerdy.
I don't know that one.
You don't know that song? That's like
I know the song. I know the song, but I don't know the lyric.
Okay. Well, you should watch the music video because it's funny, just like the song. And I think he has a picture of him like behind a keyboard, like editing furiously. So.
Okay, side conversation. I would say Amish Paradise is better than White and Nerdy, although I know I'm in the minority there.
Well, it's one of those things like this is a good conversation for any art, and we could probably even tie it into Wes Anderson. Like when you say best, some people mean like most well known. So they might say best Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. But most
Mhm.
people who like Zeppelin are going to be like, just dismiss that outright because it's just such an overplayed song, right? It's cliche. And I think
Yeah.
that's how a lot of people feel with if they're Weird Al fans. It's like that's like the song that everybody would go to, and it's bleh, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So that is really good, though. I mean, Amish Paradise is really well done.
Yeah. Let's
Anyway,
talk some more after this.
what's that on our
I think we've
schedule?
wrapped everything up pretty much.
Yeah, I think so. Next week we do Fantastic Mr. Fox, which would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I'm excited about rewatch. Actually, that's one of the ones I've watched most recently on my own because I got it from the library or something because I thought the kids would like it, and we watched it probably within the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And the kids did
they
like
it.
Yeah,
They
and
did?
they did that. We did the thing
Yeah.
pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and we'll try to do that here in, I guess, a week from today.
Yeah. Hey, stay on after this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Oh,
I'm
we got to do
Brandon.
our catchphrase.
Do you start it?
Who started it last? I can't remember who started last week. Okay, I'll start. I'm Seth Andrew Hecox.
I'm Brandon Michael Williams.
And together we are Intentionally Wes
Wes Anderson.